Hey guys, welcome back to another night of boring history. So, you've decided you want to live in the Roman Empire. Maybe you've seen the marble temples, the heroic soldiers in sandals, the baths, the togas, and you thought, yeah, I could totally survive that. Well, let's see how long that confidence lasts. You open your eyes, and instead of your bedroom ceiling, you see a smoky wooden beam. The air smells like oil lamps, sweat, and something faintly sour. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the heart of ancient Rome. Not the postcard version, the real one. And it's already too late to back out. You roll over on your straw-stuffed mattress. It's lumpy, scratchy, and full of something that may or may not be alive. There's no soft pillow, just a rolled-up bit of cloth that smells faintly like goat. You're inside a cramped insula, a Roman apartment building that looks like it was built by someone in a hurry, because it was. Thin brick walls, wooden floors, and zero concern for fire safety. You can hear every cough, sneeze, and argument coming from the neighbors, and there's a baby crying 3 rooms over. You sit up and stretch, already sweating. The air feels heavy. Sticky Roman summers weren't exactly gentle. There's no fan, no window glass, just an open hole that lets in a mix of sunlight and street noise. You peek outside, and there it is, the Roman street, alive and chaotic, carts creaking, merchants shouting, and somewhere, a chicken screaming for reasons you probably don't want to know. You think maybe you'll get some fresh air, but once you step outside, that idea immediately dies. The smell hits you like a wall, a powerful blend of manure, fish, rotten vegetables, and human waste. Remember, indoor plumbing is mostly for the rich. Everyone else just dumps their chamber pots right into the street. So you're walking carefully, avoiding puddles that are not water. You try not to breathe too deeply as you make your way down the alley. The streets are narrow, just enough room for a single cart, and the walls of the buildings lean in like they're gossiping about your chances of survival. People brush past you, tunics, sandals, dirt. Everyone's wearing the same basic outfit, because fashion here means something you can afford, and doesn't fall apart in the sun. You think, okay, maybe food will make this better. So you head to the market, the forum, the beating heart of the city. It's bustling, noisy, and weirdly impressive. Marble columns gleam in the sunlight, vendors are shouting in Latin, and you can smell roasting meat. Finally, something familiar. You spot a food stall, and point to something that looks like bread. The vendor hands it over, and you take a bite. It's crunchy, too crunchy. Turns out, the bread is mixed with a bit of sawdust or chalk, a cheap trick bakers use to make it last longer. You chew it anyway because, well, what else are you gonna do? You try washing it down with water, but that's another mistake. The water might have come from an aqueduct, sure, but those beautiful Roman pipes, made of lead. Over time, the Romans slowly poisoned themselves with their own plumbing. So congratulations, your first Roman breakfast is bread and brain damage. You decide to walk it off. You wander past temples, statues, and shops full of everything from pottery to perfumes to weird bronze charms. Rome is massive, loud, and alive. But you start noticing things. The beggars on the steps, the slaves running errands, chained or marked, the soldiers walking with that bored, dangerous look of men who've seen too much. Someone bumps into you, a man in a toga, clearly upper class, who looks at you like you're something he stepped in. Status means everything here. You, with your weird clothes and confused expression, don't fit anywhere. In fact, if anyone looks too closely, they'll probably assume you're a runaway slave. And in Rome, that's not a small problem. You duck into a side street to get out of the way, and the temperature rises even more. The walls trap the heat, and the smell of garbage and sweat thickens. You pass a public latrine, a row of stone seats, side by side, no partitions. Dozens of people doing their business while chatting. Privacy doesn't exist here, and that sponge on a stick everyone shares for wiping. Yeah, let's not think about it too much. You keep walking, and suddenly, there's shouting ahead. A group of slaves is hauling a wagon, and one stumbles. The overseer's whip cracks like thunder. You freeze. Nobody stops it. Nobody even looks twice. In Rome, this is just background noise. You start realizing something. This empire runs on suffering. Behind every marble building and gold coin, there's blood, sweat, and fear. Slaves dig the mines, build the roads, clean the houses, and if they complain, they disappear. You're beginning to understand why you wouldn't last a day. Your stomach growls again. but you decide, maybe you'll skip lunch. You wander toward the baths instead. They're famous, right? The Roman baths were the social hubs of the city, where people bathed, gossiped, and made deals. You pay the entrance fee, a small bronze coin, and step inside. The air is thick with steam. Men walk around naked or half-dressed, rubbing oil on their skin. You try to act natural, but it's hard when everyone's staring. You realize you're supposed to bring your own towel, oil, and strigil, a curved metal scraper used instead of soap. You don't have any of that, so you just sit awkwardly near a fountain and pretend you know what's going on. Eventually, you make your way to the hot room, the caldarium. The heat hits you like an oven. You sit for about 30 seconds before deciding you might actually pass out. The Romans loved extremes: hot rooms, cold plunges, intense conversations about philosophy while sweating profusely. You, however, are just trying not to die. After escaping the baths, you're lightheaded and dizzy. Maybe the heat, maybe the dehydration, maybe the lead poisoning kicking in early. You stagger back into the street, where the afternoon sun is brutal. You find a bit of shade and sit down beside a fountain. The water looks clean enough. You hope. A boy runs past, laughing. Someone else yells. A cart rolls by, and you catch a glimpse of a soldier's armor glinting in the light. For a second, it feels cinematic. Then a rat runs over your foot, and the illusion dies. You start thinking about sleep. Maybe things will feel better tomorrow. You trudge back to your insula, climbing the narrow stairs that creak like they're about to give way. You pass a neighbor's door. You can smell stew cooking. You wonder if they'd share, but then you remember, this is Rome. Everything has a price. You reach your room, sit on your straw bed, and look out at the fading light. The city hums below. Laughter, shouting, hammers, wheels. It's beautiful, in a grimy, chaotic way. You can see why people called this the greatest empire in the world. But you can also feel the exhaustion in your bones, the dirt on your skin, the heat clinging to your clothes. You lie back, staring at the ceiling. Something scurries in the corner. You tell yourself it's just your imagination. Outside, someone's singing in Latin, and for a brief moment, it almost feels peaceful. You close your eyes, thinking you've made it through your first Roman day. But just as you start to drift off, the building shakes. Someone's yelling, "Fire!" Again, you stumble out of bed, heart pounding, and realize you're not dreaming. Welcome to Rome. You're not even going to last till sunrise. The sound of shouting snaps you fully awake. Feet pounding, voices echoing through the narrow halls. Someone screaming, "Ignis fire!" You stumble into the hallway, the air already hazy with smoke. It's the worst possible place to be in Rome, when flames break out an insula, a tinderbox of wood and oil lamps, stacked like a matchbox tower. You rush down the stairs, holding onto the rail that shakes under your grip, and the heat hits you before you even reach the ground floor. Outside, chaos reigns. People are throwing buckets of water, which is mostly useless. Others are carrying furniture, clothes, anything they can save. A woman runs past with a chicken under her arm, yelling something about her husband still being inside. You cough as the acrid smoke burns your throat, eyes watering, trying to find open air. There's no fire department, just slaves, neighbors, and maybe a few bucket brigades organized by sheer panic. The fire spreads fast. You can feel the wave of heat chase you down the street. Someone grabs your arm, yelling at you to move, and you run, not knowing where you're going. Around you, the wooden upper floors groan and collapse. Sparks float through the air like angry stars. You duck under a marble archway and watch your home vanish into smoke. Just like that, you're homeless in ancient Rome. When the flames finally die, the street is a charred ruin. People are sitting on the cobblestones, dazed. Someone's selling water for a ridiculous price because even in disaster, the Romans knew how to hustle. You watch a man calmly roasting a fish over the smoldering remains of a building. Life, apparently, keeps going. You're filthy, exhausted, and have nowhere to sleep. You wander for hours, the night thick with smoke and the faint glow of dying fires. Eventually, you end up near the Forum Romanum, where statues of gods and dead emperors watch silently over the mess. You find a stone bench and sit down. Your clothes stink, your throat burns, and the city around you doesn't care. Rome moves on without missing a beat. You try to sleep, but the noise never stops. Wheels clatter over the stones. Drunken laughter spills from taverns. Somewhere, a flute plays, soft and haunting. Rome never truly sleeps. not with a million souls packed into its belly. You wrap your arms around yourself and stare at the stars. The sky looks the same as home, but everything else is alien. By morning, you're stiff and hungry. Your first night in the Empire has officially wrecked you. You shuffle toward the nearest bakery, drawn by the smell of fresh bread, only to find a crowd already forming. The bakers shouting about grain shortages, prices rising again. A man next to you mutters something about corruption, about how the grain ships from Egypt are late. You remember the entire city depends on imported food. If the sea's rough, or pirates strike, everyone goes hungry. You finally get a hunk of bread after waiting half an hour, but when you bite into it, you realize the same trick again, sawdust. You chew anyway. Hunger is persuasive. Across the street, a group of slaves is sweeping ashes from the fire. You notice their backs scarred, their eyes hollow. Rome runs on this kind of quiet misery. You've seen the monuments, the arches of triumph, the temples, but they're all built on someone's pain. For every marble statue, there's a dozen broken bodies behind it. You decide to find work, thinking maybe money could at least buy safety. You ask around, but in Rome, nobody hires strangers, especially not someone who can't speak fluent Latin or prove they're free. A man selling oil tells you bluntly, if you can't prove your master's name, you are property. That hits hard. You keep moving, hugging your tattered cloak around yourself as the sun climbs. By noon, the heat feels like a punishment. You pass the Tiber River brown, sluggish, and stinking faintly of decay. People are washing clothes, fishing, even drinking from it. You start to realize how fragile life is here. A bad meal, a small cut, a fever, all could kill you. You stop at a fountain, a beautiful marble one with carved dolphins, and splash your face. The water feels cool, refreshing, but you can't shake the thought of lead pipes feeding it. You drink anyway. Survival wins over logic. A young man nearby notices you. He's wearing a cleaner tunic than most, a small bronze pin marking him as part of some household staff. He asks if you need work. You nod, trying not to sound desperate. He explains his master, a merchant, needs someone to help carry goods at the port. The pay's miserable, but it's something. You follow him through winding alleys until you reach the bustling river docks. Ships line the shore, unloading sacks of grain, amphorae of wine, olive oil, fish sauce, garum, the stuff Romans put on everything. The smell is awful, like fermented fish and vinegar. You gag, but everyone else seems fine. You join a line of workers lifting and carrying heavy loads, sweating under the sun. The merchant watches from shade, sipping watered wine. By the end of the day, your arms ache, your hands are raw, and your back feels like it's on fire. You get paid a few copper coins, barely enough for a meal and a place to lie down. But hey, it's honest work. You shuffle to a tavern, dark, smoky, and crowded. The barkeep slams a cup of wine in front of you. It's cheap, mixed with water, and maybe a hint of resin. You drink anyway. Around you, men argue, sing, and gamble with knucklebones. The walls are covered with soot and graffiti, crude jokes, names, and love notes. Someone offers you stew. You hesitate, but accept. It's warm, salty, and full of unidentifiable meat. You don't ask questions. As the night deepens, the talk turns to politics, whispers about the emperor, the Senate, taxes. Everyone has an opinion, but nobody says too much. You notice how they lower their voices when guards walk by. Words can be dangerous here. In Rome, free speech isn't exactly free. When you step outside, the city glows under torchlight. The noise never fades, the rhythm of carts, the murmur of crowds, laughter echoing down stone alleys. Somewhere distant, a trumpet sounds from a military camp. You find a corner near a temple and sit down, leaning against the wall. Your coins clink faintly in your pouch. All that hard work for a handful of copper. You think about home, about clean air, about silence. Rome feels heavy, like it's pressing down on you. You're starting to understand that this empire, for all its glory, isn't built for comfort. It's built for survival. Every day is a gamble. One wrong step, one unlucky encounter, and you could vanish into the crowd forever. As you drift into an uneasy sleep, you hear the clatter of hooves. A chariot rushes past, splashing filthy water on your feet. You groan softly. Somewhere nearby, a street performer is playing a flute, trying to earn enough for dinner. A dog barks. The air still smells faintly of ash. The next morning comes too soon. Your neck hurts from sleeping on stone. The city is already awake, merchants setting up stalls, slaves carrying baskets, soldiers patrolling with spears. You stretch and stand, every muscle sore. You try to tell yourself you're adapting, but deep down, you know you're barely hanging on. You wander toward the marketplace again. A crowd has gathered around a platform. Curious, you push closer and instantly regret it. It's a slave auction. Men, women, and children stand chained while buyers inspect them like animals. The auctioneer shouts prices. One child cries quietly. You want to look away, but can't. This is how Rome functions. People as property, lives as currency. The crowd cheers as another sale is made. You step back, feeling sick. Nobody else seems bothered. You realize that compassion isn't a common currency here either. You move away, trying to clear your head, but the sound of the auctioneer's voice keeps echoing. You find yourself wandering aimlessly again. The city is endless. Temples, taverns, baths, tenements, markets. Every corner hides a new smell, a new danger. Somewhere in the distance, you see the Colosseum rising like a mountain. The thought of what happens inside makes you shiver. By midday, the heat is punishing again. You pass a group of men lounging by a fountain, talking about the latest games, gladiators, wild beasts, executions. It's entertainment here. Blood as spectacle. You think of the poor souls thrown into the arena for the crowd's amusement, and suddenly your sore muscles and bad bread don't seem so terrible. At least you're not in there, yet. You find another tavern, quieter this time, and collapse onto a stool. The barkeep eyes you suspiciously, but serves you wine anyway. You stare at the red liquid, thin and warm, and sigh. The city outside hums, a living, breathing thing that never stops. For a brief moment, you wonder how anyone managed to survive here. The Romans called themselves masters of the world, and in a way, they were. But living in their world meant constant struggle, heat, filth, hunger, disease, fear. You realize that for most people, Rome wasn't an empire of marble. It was one of mud and sweat. You close your eyes, letting the sounds fade, the chatter, the clinking cups, the footsteps outside. Sleep tugs at you again. The wine helps. You drift off, right there in the corner of the tavern, head resting on your arms. You dream of quiet streets, clean air, and a bed that doesn't itch. When you wake, you'll be back in Rome, a city that never stops testing you. And you're only on day 2. You wake up to someone kicking the leg of your stool. The tavern keeper's glaring at you, broom in hand, muttering in Latin that you can't sleep here. You blink blearily, your head pounding. The wine left your mouth dry and your stomach sour. The sunlight cuts through the doorway in blinding streaks, turning the dust in the air into golden mist. You mutter something that might mean sorry and stumble outside. The morning feels heavy, humid. Rome smells like wet stone and something faintly metallic, blood, maybe, or the tannery nearby. You rub your face, wishing for water, soap, or a toothbrush. The Romans used crushed bones or charcoal to scrub their teeth, and if you could find that, you'd call it luxury. But you'd settle for not tasting stale wine. You start walking again, down a street lined with taverns, bakeries, and little stalls selling everything from dice to charms. You hear snippets of conversation, rumors about the emperor, about taxes, about someone's neighbor caught stealing olive oil. Everyone talks politics, even the poor. It's part of surviving in Rome, knowing when to speak and when to shut up. You stop by a small workshop where a potter is shaping clay. His arms move with practiced ease, spinning the wheel, shaping a jar. You watch silently. The smell of wet earth fills the air. He looks up and grunts. You ask awkwardly if he needs an assistant. He studies you for a moment, then shakes his head. Too soft, he says, hands like a senator's. You can't tell if it's an insult or a compliment. As you pass a corner, you hear music, a rhythmic thump of drums and the squeal of a pipe. A small crowd gathers around a group of street performers, jugglers, dancers, a man balancing on a pole. They're covered in dust but smiling, their energy infectious. You stop to watch, half distracted by the idea that laughter still exists here. A boy sneaks through the crowd, bumping shoulders. You barely notice until you realize your pouch is gone. Your stomach drops. You spin. Too late, the boy's already vanished into the crowd. Your entire fortune, a few miserable coins, gone. You feel anger rise in your chest, then fear. You could yell, but nobody would help. Everyone just minds their business. The Romans admire cunning, even in thieves. You sink onto a nearby step, heart pounding. The realization hits you. You're broke, alone, and one wrong move away from disaster. You think maybe you should leave the city, but then where would you go? Outside the walls, it's all farms, villas, bandits, and dust. Inside, at least there's noise, food, life, even if it's cruel. By midday, the streets shimmer with heat. You find shade near a temple, its columns white against the blue sky. The priests are inside, murmuring prayers and waving incense. The smell is thick and sweet. You close your eyes, letting the faint chanting lull your mind. For a moment, it's peaceful. Then, someone shoves past you roughly. A man in a fine toga, flanked by 2 guards. His sandals are polished, his rings gleam. He looks at you with disgust, as if you've contaminated the air by existing. Filth, he mutters. You don't understand the full sentence, but the meaning is clear. You move out of the way quickly. That's the thing about Rome. Hierarchy seeps into everything. Every look, every gesture, every word reminds you of where you stand. The poor bend, the rich stride, the soldiers command, the slaves obey. You're somewhere in between, too strange to belong, too weak to resist. You wander again, aimless, until the roar of a crowd catches your ear. The sound is enormous, echoing off the stone streets, cheering, chanting, a pulse of energy that makes the hairs on your arms rise. You follow it, through winding alleys, until the walls open up into a colossal sight, the Colosseum. It towers above the city, its arches glowing gold in the sunlight. You stop in awe. It's beautiful, terrifying, and alive with noise. Tens of thousands of voices rise together in a single rhythm. Excitement, bloodlust, celebration. You join the crowd streaming inside. Tickets are free if you're poor. The emperor wants everyone entertained. Bread and circuses keep the people fed and distracted, and they won't think too much about their misery. You squeeze into the stone seats, surrounded by strangers. The heat radiates from the sand below, and the air smells of sweat, wine, and iron. At first, it's almost theatrical. Acrobats, music, a parade of gladiators saluting the crowd. You watch, fascinated. Then the gates open. A man steps out, bare-chested, sword in hand. Another follows. The crowd hushes. Then the clash, steel against steel. Grunts, cheers. It's brutal, fast, real. Blood hits the sand, and the arena erupts in applause. Your stomach tightens. You try to remind yourself this is normal here. Entertainment. The crowd chants for death like it's a song. You kill him. The victor raises his weapon, panting, and one man's life ends, while thousands cheer. You look around. Even children are laughing. Women toss flowers. The emperor himself might be here somewhere, watching from his shaded box, deciding who lives and dies with a flick of his hand. You realize you're sitting inside the heartbeat of Rome. Beautiful, cruel, hypnotic. By the time it's over, you're numb. The sun's lower, the shadows longer. You stumble out with the crowd, your mind buzzing. You've seen things you'll never forget, and not in a good way. You wonder how anyone could get used to this, but they do. Everyone here grows armor over their hearts, because feeling too much gets you hurt. You drift toward the poorer quarters again, where the smell of cooking meat lures you toward a street vendor. You trade your last coin for a skewer of something vaguely resembling pork. It's greasy, hot, and exactly what you needed. You eat as you walk, letting the chaos of the streets wash over you. Night falls, and the city lights up with torches. The marble temples glow faintly in the flickering orange light. You find yourself drawn toward the river again. People sit along the banks, talking softly, lovers whispering under the shadows of bridges. You sit too, hugging your knees. The Tiber flows slow and dark, carrying the day's filth away toward the sea. You wonder what it was like to be Roman, to be born here, to think this was normal. Maybe then, the filth wouldn't seem so bad, the fear wouldn't cut so deep. You'd know the rules, the language, the gods. You'd belong. But you don't, and belonging here isn't something you can fake. A cold breeze drifts over the water. Somewhere, a temple bell rings softly. You close your eyes, listening. The city hums like a heartbeat, relentless, ancient, indifferent. You're so tired. You find a quiet corner under an arch and lie down. The stone is hard, but you don't care. The sounds of Rome fade into a distant murmur, laughter, hooves, voices. You drift between waking and dreaming. In your half-sleep, you see flashes, torches in the arena, faces in the crowd, the flicker of firelight in the ruins of your insula. Rome lives forever, and you're just passing through. Morning comes again with the sound of vendors shouting. Your body feels like it's made of lead. You sit up slowly, every joint protesting. You realize you've made it 3 days, and it feels like 3 months. You look at the city stretching out before you, massive and indifferent, and think, no, you really wouldn't last a day here. You wake up to the sound of coughing. Not yours. This time, though, your throat feels like sandpaper, but from the man slumped a few feet away. He's wheezing wetly, every breath rattling like pebbles in a jar. His tunic is stuck to his skin with sweat, and his eyes are half open, glazed. You shift slightly, not sure whether to help or stay quiet. Around here, sickness spreads faster than gossip. Rome, for all its glory, stinks of death. The streets are full of life. Yes, laughter, shouting, bargaining. But underneath it all, something festers. The air tastes faintly of rot, of things that shouldn't be left out in the sun. The gutters overflow with slop from kitchens, waste from people and animals alike. Every rainstorm turns it all into a stew that sloshes through the alleys. You pull your tunic tighter and stand, brushing off the dust. The man keeps coughing, and you walk away, guilt trailing behind like smoke. There's no medicine here for people like him. The Romans had doctors, sure, but they were mostly for those who could pay. For everyone else, superstition did the job. You pass a small shrine on the corner, a little statue of a household god, Lares, decorated with wilted flowers and melted wax. A woman kneels there, whispering prayers. You can't understand all the words, but you catch fever and mercy. She's probably praying for her child. You've already seen how many children cough the same way, thin, tired, eyes too big for their faces. The market's already open. The smell of fresh bread mixes with that of sweat and wine. A butcher hacks at a slab of meat with a cleaver that's seen better days. Flies buzz in lazy circles. You pause near a stall selling olives and dried fish, pretending to look while your eyes dart toward a loaf of bread. Hunger's a quiet, dull ache now, more familiar than fear. You think about stealing, just for a second, but a flash of metal, a soldier's helmet, keeps you still. Theft here doesn't end with a warning. You wander toward the baths. The great thermae are one of Rome's few wonders open to nearly everyone, poor, rich, citizen, slave. If you can pay a few small coins, you can soak away your aches. Or, if you're clever, sneak in with a crowd and hope no one notices. The building looms ahead, columns, statues, the smell of steam and oil. Inside, voices echo off the marble walls. The sound of splashing water fills the air. You manage to slip past the attendants, while a group of loud men argue about politics. You keep your head low and move quickly, toward the warm room. Steam hits you like a wall. It smells faintly of herbs and sweat. The heat seeps into your bones, loosening the tightness in your muscles. For a few moments, it feels heavenly. The men around you lounge on benches, chatting lazily. They talk about gladiator matches, grain prices, and rumors of the emperor's latest mistress. Everything's casual, unhurried. You try to mimic them, sinking deeper into the water, eyes half closed. A man beside you points to a scar on his arm, boasting about it. Boar hunt, he says proudly. His friend laughs and tells him it looks more like a kitchen accident. They splash each other, their laughter echoing. For a moment, it almost feels like you belong. Then, an attendant walks in with a tray of oils. People line up for massages. You stay quiet, unnoticed, until the man's eyes meet yours. He frowns, looks you up and down, and mutters something about vagrants. You take the hint and slip out before trouble starts. Outside, the cool air feels good. You sit on the steps, letting your body dry. Across the street, a group of slaves carry baskets of laundry to a stream. Their movements are practiced, automatic. One of them hums softly, a tune from somewhere far away. You realize how many people in this city are from somewhere else. Gaul, Africa, Syria, Britain, all drawn or dragged here by Rome's reach. The sun's high now, and the city feels like it's baking. You find yourself in a narrow alley that smells of tanneries and smoke. A man sits there, grinding something with a pestle. His hands are stained red. You realize he's a medicus, a doctor, or at least someone pretending to be one. Curious, you approach. He looks up and grins with crooked teeth. Fever, he asks. Pain, bad blood. His table is covered with jars, honey, vinegar, bits of bone, herbs. You shake your head, but he keeps talking. He shows you a jar of something dark. Cure for weakness, he says proudly. You peer inside. It's a mix of herbs and what looks like crushed beetles. You try not to gag. Roman medicine was equal parts science and magic. Some of it worked, like using vinegar for cleaning wounds or honey as an antiseptic. But most of it was experimental, to put it kindly. Bloodletting, leeches, and potions with ingredients you don't want to identify. The man offers you a small vial. Only 1 coin, he says. You tell him you don't have any. His grin fades, and he waves you off like a fly. You leave before he changes his mind about being polite. Further ahead, the noise changes. You hear shouting, rhythmic, desperate. A crowd is gathered around a corner. You push closer, curiosity outweighing caution. In the center, a man stands on a crate, preaching loudly about the god's anger. His robe flaps in the wind, his eyes wild. Plague, he cries. It comes because of sin, because we forget the old ways. The crowd murmurs. Some cross themselves, others spit in disgust. You can feel their fear, invisible but thick in the air. Disease terrifies them more than war. In a city packed with 1 million souls, one sickness can sweep through like wildfire. You edge away. You've seen enough death for one day. As you turn down another street, you notice the buildings changing. Less marble, more wood, closer together. The poorer quarters. The smell of fish and sweat hangs in the air. Laundry flaps from the windows. Kids play in the dirt with sticks, laughing, oblivious. You pass a woman sitting on the ground with a basket of herbs. She's muttering charms under her breath. Maybe a healer, maybe just desperate. She glances at you, eyes sharp, and says something about bad luck following you. You don't ask what she means. You keep walking until you reach the edge of the Subura district, the beating heart of Rome's chaos. This is where the noise never dies. Taverns, brothels, gambling dens, the place pulses with life. You hear arguments, laughter, breaking glass. Somewhere, a lute plays out of tune. You slip into a tavern, mostly for shade. The air is thick with smoke and the smell of cheap wine. People shout over each other. Dice clatter against the tables. You order a small cup of whatever's cheapest. It tastes like vinegar, but it's liquid, and that's good enough. A man sits beside you, older, scar across his cheek. He grins. First time in the Subura. You shrug. He laughs. Don't worry, you'll get used to the smell, or die before you do. He tells you he's a laborer, hauling stone for a new aqueduct. Says the work's good when you can get it, but the overseers are brutal. You don't show up one day, he says. Someone else takes your place. You nod, pretending to understand, though you can barely keep your eyes open. He keeps talking about taxes, about corrupt officials, about how the city takes everything and gives nothing back. Rome's a beast, he says, feeds on us. But if you run, it follows you. The roads all lead back here. He laughs again, but there's no humor in it. When you leave the tavern, the light outside feels too bright. You wander down a narrow alley, half drunk, half lost. The ground's uneven, the stones slick. You hear the distant clatter of hooves and realize the main street's close. You're almost at the river again. You pause by a fountain, dipping your hands into the cool water. A few coins glint at the bottom. You consider reaching in but stop. Even superstition feels sacred here. A group of children run past, chasing each other. One of them bumps into you, giggling, then disappears into the crowd. You smile faintly, despite yourself. Rome may be cruel, but somehow, life keeps sprouting from its cracks. By the time dusk falls, you're back near the bridge. The lamps flicker to life, one by one, small fires pushing against the dark. You find a quiet spot by the wall and sit. Across the water, you can see the outlines of temples, palaces, domes, the bones of an empire that seems too big to die. You breathe in the night air, smoke, wine, river, and let your eyes close. You think of the coughing man, the healer, the preacher, the laborer. You realize they're all just trying to survive the same storm. And as the sounds of the city soften into a low hum, you whisper to yourself, yeah, you wouldn't last a day here, but you did. Somehow, you did. The night in Rome is never really quiet. It just changes its rhythm. By day, the noise is shouting, carts, hooves. By night, it's murmurs, footsteps, the faint ring of metal, and laughter that sounds both tired and dangerous. You wake before dawn again, your back stiff from sleeping on straw that's now damped with the city's humidity. Somewhere below, someone's already arguing about bread prices. The voices drift up through the thin walls of the insula like smoke. You sit up, rub your eyes, and try to pretend you slept well. You can hear footsteps on the stairs, someone rushing down, their sandals slapping against wood. The building creaks and groans, as if it's also waking up. You stretch, grab the jug of water you left near the door, and take a sip. Warm, metallic, stale. You grimace, but it's better than nothing. Outside, the sky is a dull grey. The first carts are already rolling, loaded with amphorae of olive oil and fish sauce. The air smells faintly of smoke and the sea, though the sea is miles away. You step into the street, and for a moment it almost feels peaceful. The city hasn't reached full volume yet. You walk toward the Forum again, the same path as yesterday, though the streets look a little different now. New graffiti, new piles of trash, a dead rat in the gutter. A group of slaves sweeps the stones, pushing filth into neat piles that the next rain will wash back out. You pass a bakery and pause. The smell of baking bread is intoxicating, warm, sweet, comforting. You can almost forget that it's mixed with the scent of burning wood and ash. You manage to trade a small favor, carrying a sack of flour for a half loaf. The baker doesn't smile, but he nods once, which is basically Roman for you're welcome. You bite into the bread while walking. It's dense, chewy, not bad. A few crumbs fall to the ground, and a dog darts out from under a cart to snatch them. You toss the rest its way, and it disappears into the shadows, tail wagging. Rome is waking. Merchants shout, stalls open, slaves hurry with baskets and buckets. You turn a corner and find yourself near the public fountain again. A few women are already there, filling clay jugs and chatting in low tones. Their laughter carries through the misty morning, soft and musical. You stand for a moment just listening. It's strange in a city this hard. People still find ways to laugh. You wander on. A man selling garum, the famous Roman fish sauce, yells his prices. The smell hits you from several feet away. It's intense, rotting fish fermented in salt and sun. You watch as he pours it from a jar into small containers for customers. Everyone loves this stuff, he says proudly, even emperors. You try to imagine the Emperor of Rome pouring fermented fish juice on his dinner, and the thought makes you smile. Nearby, another vendor is selling fruit, figs, dates, and a few apples so small and bruised they barely count. You buy one with the last coin you have. The sweetness surprises you. For a moment, you feel like you're part of this place, eating breakfast under a Roman sky, surrounded by strangers who have no idea you don't belong. As the sun climbs higher, the streets grow busier. The sound of sandals on stone blends with the chatter of markets and the clatter of tools. Workers repair walls, blacksmiths hammer metal, and somewhere a poet recites verses to anyone who will listen. You stop for a moment, drawn in by his voice. He's standing on a box, gesturing dramatically, reciting something about gods and fate. His toga is patched and his hair wild, but his words have rhythm. The crowd watches, half amused, half bored. When he finishes, a few toss coins. Most don't. You see his smile falter, just slightly, before he bows and starts again. Rome's full of people chasing something. Fame, food, survival, and most of them catch nothing. You keep walking until you reach the baths again. You hesitate, then go in. This time you've got a plan. Maybe you can work there, even for a few hours. You ask around, and by some miracle, the attendant agrees to let you help scrape floors for a few ecstasies. The work is simple, hauling water, cleaning benches, fetching oil. It's exhausting, but the heat keeps you numb. Between chores, you watch the others, merchants, veterans, young men with carefully oiled hair. They talk business, gossip, philosophy. Two men debate whether the soul lives after death. Another complains about his neighbor's chickens. It's weirdly domestic, almost cozy. You catch snippets of other conversations, rumors about wars far away, about barbarian tribes, about taxes rising again. Someone mentions a senator being accused of corruption, and everyone laughs, as if corruption is as natural as the sunrise. When you finally finish, the attendant tosses you a coin and a small piece of bread. You thank him, though he's already yelling at someone else. You sit near a window where the light falls in soft golden streaks. The air is thick with steam, the sound of dripping water echoing. For a few minutes, you just sit, letting your muscles unclench. Later, you step back into the street, sweat drying on your skin. The world feels brighter, sharper. The sky is cloudless, the stones almost glowing. You walk with no real plan, just letting the city pull you along. You pass a small courtyard where a group of boys is playing trigon, tossing a leather ball between them with surprising speed. Their laughter fills the space. You lean against a wall, watching. One boy misses. The ball rolls your way, and you toss it back. He grins and waves before running off again. For a second, it feels like time stops. You think maybe life here isn't just pain. Maybe it's also small joys, quick laughter, bread that smells like smoke, and sunlight bouncing off marble. You understand, suddenly, why people stayed, why they called this empire eternal. By midday, the heat turns cruel again. You find shade under a colonnade near a temple. Pigeons coo in the rafters. A priest sweeps the steps, humming softly. You close your eyes, listening to the sounds, sandals scraping, coins clinking, the distant splash of water from a fountain. It's all rhythmic, hypnotic. Then a trumpet sounds. Somewhere nearby, soldiers march by in formation, armor gleaming, faces unreadable. The crowd parts instinctively. You step aside, watching them pass. There's something terrifyingly perfect about them. The discipline, the power. You can feel it. The reason this city commands half the known world. But there's something else too. Weariness. You catch it in the way. One soldier's shoulders slump, the faint limp in another's step. They're human, just like everyone else, trapped in the same endless cycle of obedience and fear. You wander toward the river again, where vendors sell grilled fish and watered wine. You trade your small coin for a cup, sit on the wall, and sip. The Tiber glimmers in the sunlight, muddy and alive. Barges drift past, heavy with goods from across the empire. Grain, marble, wine, slaves. You think about how far those things traveled. Egypt, Greece, Spain, Gaul. The empire stretches so wide it almost feels unreal. And yet, sitting here, it's just a muddy river, and you're just a tired person watching it flow. A group of fishermen laugh nearby. One of them waves and asks if you're from the north. You nod, not sure what else to say. He tells you about his day, how the fish were biting, how his wife makes stew that could kill a man, how his son wants to join the legions. His laughter's rough but genuine. You find yourself laughing too. For a moment, it's easy to forget the fear. The sun starts to sink, turning the buildings gold. You walk through the forum again, now bathed in amber light. The marble statues glow softly, and for the first time, you see the beauty everyone talks about. The city looks alive in a different way, slower, gentler. Vendors start closing their stalls. Children run home. A few musicians play near the fountain, their notes drifting through the warm air. You sit nearby, eyes half closed, letting the music blend with the hum of the city. It's the kind of sound that makes you forget what century you're in. As night falls, the lamps are lit again. The city glows faintly, like embers in a dying fire. You find your way back toward your insula, exhausted but strangely calm. You pass the same graffiti you saw before, messages scratched into walls, names, jokes, declarations of love. One reads, "We were here, and we laughed." You smile. It feels oddly modern. When you reach your room, you sit on the edge of the bed, peel off your sandals, and stretch. The night air drifts through the window, warm, full of voices. Someone's singing again, somewhere far off. You lie down, eyes heavy, and listen until everything fades into silence. You've survived another day, barely, and maybe, in a way, that's what being Roman really means. The next morning begins before the sun. A low hum rolls through the streets like a pulse. You hear footsteps, shouting, the creak of wooden carts. Rome never really sleeps. It just pauses to catch its breath. You drag yourself up, feeling the weight of dust in your throat and stiffness in your spine. The air smells faintly of last night's fires and cheap wine spilled in the alleyways. Someone outside is calling out prices for bread, his voice echoing against the walls. You stand by the window, watching the city yawn awake. Smoke curls from a dozen hearths. The sky is soft gray, the kind that promises another hot day. You step outside, the street's already alive. A woman sweeps her doorstep, muttering about pigeons. A boy runs past with a loaf under his arm, chased by a baker who's cursing creatively in Latin. It's noisy, chaotic, and somehow rhythmic. You can almost hear the heartbeat of Rome in it. You decide to walk toward the Circus Maximus. You've heard about the races, chariots flying at impossible speeds, crowds roaring loud enough to shake the earth. It sounds like madness, and maybe that's why you're drawn to it. The closer you get, the more the crowd thickens. People of every shape and shade move together, slaves carrying baskets, merchants with gold rings, soldiers off duty, children perched on shoulders. You can feel their excitement, their hunger for spectacle. Romans don't just live, they consume life. The Circus Maximus looms ahead, an enormous oval carved into the city's heart. It can hold hundreds of thousands. The noise from inside is a living thing, rising and falling like waves. You manage to slip through a side gate, wedged between two men arguing about which team will win, the Reds or the Greens. Inside, the sight steals your breath. The track stretches out like a golden ribbon under the sun. The smell of dust, sweat, and horse fills the air. Trumpets blare. Chariots line up, sleek, terrifying machines drawn by 4 horses each, their drivers standing tall, reins wrapped around their waists. You hear someone whisper a prayer to Neptune, god of horses. Another man kisses a charm for luck. Then the starting gate drops, and the world explodes. The horses thunder forward, hooves hammering the earth. Dust blinds you for a second. The crowd screams, thousands of voices blending into one roar. You can feel it in your chest. The drivers lean dangerously into the turns, their chariots skidding inches from the edge. One slips, the wheel catches, splinters, and the man is thrown. He hits the ground hard. You flinch. The crowd gasps, then cheers when another driver takes the lead. It's chaos, brutal, thrilling, beautiful chaos. You realize this isn't just sport, it's worship. Rome worships speed, power, control. The crowd's eyes burn with something ancient and hungry. For a moment, you understand them. Then you remember that somewhere in that cloud of dust, a man just died, and no one cares. When the race ends, the winners are lifted high. The losers are dragged away. The crowd spills into the streets, wild with energy. You let yourself be carried along, dazed and deafened. The sun is high now, and the city glows like it's made of molten gold. You find yourself near a temple, massive steps, tall columns, the smell of incense heavy in the air. A priest in white robes waves a bronze censer, smoke curling around him. People line up with offerings, coins, bread, flowers. You follow, curious. Inside, it's cooler, quieter. The air hums with whispers and the soft crackle of oil lamps. The statue of the god towers above you, Jupiter, king of the sky, carved from marble, eyes fixed on eternity. You drop a crumb of bread onto the altar, unsure if that's allowed. A priest glances at you but says nothing. You watch as a man kneels and whispers a prayer for luck. Another woman presses her forehead to the stone, murmuring about her sick child. There's something raw in their faith, a kind of desperate hope. Rome may be full of power and cruelty, but in here, everyone is small. You wander outside again, blinking in the sunlight. A procession is forming down the street. Priests, musicians, animals painted with bright pigments. They're leading a bull toward the temple. The crowd follows, chanting. You realize you're about to witness a sacrifice. The bull's massive, muscles rippling, eyes wide. The priest raises a blade. For a heartbeat, everything goes silent, even the birds stop singing. Then the blade flashes, and it's done. Blood spills onto the stone. The crowd cheers, throwing flower petals. You stand frozen, unsure how to feel. To them, it's divine order, a gift to the gods. To you, it's a reminder of how small mercy is here. The smell of iron lingers in your nose as you walk away. You pass another temple, smaller, dedicated to household spirits, Lares and Pinites. A woman lights a candle there, humming a tune that sounds like a lullaby. She smiles faintly as she sets down a clay figure. For a moment, the brutality of the sacrifice feels like a distant dream. You keep walking, lost in thought, until the noise shifts again. Shouting, laughter, the metallic clang of weapons. You turn a corner and find a group of men practicing with wooden swords. One of them grins at you and waves you closer. Training for the games, he says proudly, wiping sweat from his brow. Maybe one day, the Colosseum. You realize they're gladiators, or at least trainees. Their bodies are scarred, their eyes tired. You ask if they like fighting. One laughs, the kind of laugh that doesn't reach his eyes. Like it, it's better than starving. They invite you to watch a sparring match. The wooden swords crack together with shocking force. They move fast, controlled, practiced, deadly. Even with blunt weapons, every blow looks like it could break bone. When one man falls, the others cheer and pull him up. You clap quietly, not sure if that's the right thing to do. As you leave, you can still hear their laughter behind you, the kind that tries to sound brave. You think about the Colosseum, the great arena where men fight beasts for sport, where the crowd decides who lives and who dies, and you think you wouldn't last a heartbeat in there. The sun begins to sink, throwing long shadows over the stones. You find yourself wandering toward the outer districts again, where the air smells of cooking fires and damp earth. The day's noise fades into something softer, the clatter of pots, children's laughter, the hum of evening. You pass a small tavern and peek inside. Music drifts out, a lyre, a drum. The room is dim, smoky, full of warmth. You step in and sit quietly at the back. People drink, talk, and sing. A woman with kind eyes pours you a cup of watered wine and asks nothing. You sip slowly, letting the sounds wash over you. A man at the next table tells a story about a ghost haunting the public baths, about a senator who turned into a wolf. Everyone laughs, then someone swears it's true. Romans love their ghosts. They believe the world's full of spirits, restless, whispering, always watching. You start to understand why. At night, this city feels ancient in a way that's alive. When you leave the tavern, the moon is high. The streets glow faintly silver. You walk slowly, feeling the stone cool under your feet. Somewhere nearby, you hear distant singing, maybe a prayer, maybe a lullaby. The air smells of olives and smoke. You stop by a fountain, watching the water shimmer. Your reflection stares back, dirt on your face, eyes tired but awake. For a long moment, you just breathe. You've seen death, worship, laughter, cruelty, beauty, all in one day. Rome doesn't give you peace, it gives you everything at once. As you make your way back to your room, the city sighs around you, the lamps flicker, a dog barks. The world feels both impossibly vast and heartbreakingly small. You reach your straw bed, lie down, and stare at the ceiling beams again. Somewhere outside, a rooster crows early. Another Roman day is already beginning. You close your eyes, wondering if you'll wake to it, or if Rome, in all her glory, has already decided you've lasted long enough. You wake to the sound of drums, not the soft, distant kind that lull you to sleep, but deep, thunderous beats that rattle the shutters and roll through the streets. For a moment, you think you're dreaming, but when you open your eyes, light is already spilling through the cracks in the wall. The city is moving again. Someone outside yells about the festival. You remember hearing the tavern folk talk about it last night, a day of games and offerings, drinking, dancing, and, as always, the faint chants of someone dying before sunset. Rome loves its festivals almost as much as it loves control. You push the door open and step into the street. It's transformed overnight. Ribbons hang from doorways, flowers scatter the ground, musicians wander with flutes and tambourines. The air smells different, roasted nuts, wine, something sweet you can't name. A boy darts past you, his face painted red. He's laughing, waving a branch wrapped in ribbons. Behind him, a group of women in bright dresses toss petals into the air. The petals stick to your hair, to the sweat already gathering on your neck. It's hot, but no one seems to care. Down the main street, a crowd gathers. You follow them, drawn by noise and curiosity. A group of actors has set up a wooden stage. Their masks gleam in the sun, huge, exaggerated faces with open mouths frozen in laughter or fear. You recognize the shape of old Greek stories. Gods, heroes, tragedies, retold for laughs. The actor playing Jupiter slaps another with a prop lightning bolt, and the crowd howls. A drunk man near you shouts a joke in Latin you don't quite catch, but everyone laughs harder. The play spirals into chaos, and the people love it. Rome doesn't care much for subtlety. It wants spectacle, even in its laughter. When the performance ends, the actors bow, and the crowd showers them with coins, olives, and strangely a few pieces of bread. You join in, tossing a copper you found yesterday. One of the actors catches your eye, winks through the mask, and disappears into the noise. The drums return, louder now. You turn a corner and find a line of dancers, men and women moving in circles, their sandals slapping rhythmically on the stones. The music is hypnotic, and the crowd joins in. For a moment, you do too, stepping awkwardly in time, until someone laughs and pulls you along. The world spins, red, gold, dust, laughter. It's strange how quickly you forget yourself here. The sun beats down, sweat runs down your spine, but you don't care. Rome has a way of swallowing you whole, until you can't tell if you're celebrating or surviving. By midday, the streets are a blur of color. Vendors shout over each other, selling honeycakes, garlands, little clay amulets. You buy one, a small charm shaped like a phallus, which, apparently, wards off bad luck. You tuck it into your belt, trying not to laugh at the absurdity. A man in a toga, clearly drunk, stands on a crate reciting poetry about Venus, goddess of love. Every few lines he forgets the words and improvises something scandalous instead. The crowd roars approval. Someone hands you a cup of wine, watered down but still strong enough to make your head swim. You drink, because saying no feels wrong here. The sun moves higher, and the heat grows heavy. You find shade near a fountain where children splash and shout. A woman sits beside you, fanning herself with a piece of parchment. She tells you the festival honors Flora, goddess of flowers and spring. We celebrate life, she says with a tired smile, because death comes for everyone soon enough. You nod, though her words settle like a stone in your stomach. In Rome, celebration always feels like it's standing on the edge of something darker. The sound of trumpets echoes from the forum, sharp and commanding. The crowd stirs again. You follow them uphill until you reach a vast open square, ringed with statues. A procession moves slowly through priests in white robes, carrying gilded images of the gods. The sunlight flashes on bronze, and the air smells thick with incense. A group of soldiers march behind them, armor gleaming. The crowd bows their heads as they pass. You do too, not entirely sure who you're supposed to be respecting, the gods or the men pretending to speak for them. At the head of it all rides a magistrate on a white horse. He waves solemnly, his face carved in self-importance. Children cheer, old men nod approvingly. Rome is obsessed with order. Even its joy marches in straight lines. After the procession passes, the crowd disperses toward the temples. You follow the smell of roasting meat and find a long table piled with offerings, bread, fruit, jars of oil. Nearby, another bull stands waiting, its horns painted gold. You've seen this before, and you know what's coming. When the priest raises his knife, you look away. The crowd murmurs a prayer, the bull falls, and the blood runs dark across the stone. A small girl collects the petals scattered earlier and tosses them into the crimson puddle. The symbolism is almost poetic, life and death sharing the same space. Someone presses a cup into your hand again, wine, thick and sweet this time. You drink automatically, your throat dry from heat and dust. Around you, people begin to dance again, as if the sacrifice was just another rhythm in the song of the day. By late afternoon, the air hums with exhaustion. The city feels heavier now, drunk on its own celebration. You wander back toward the river, following the sound of music. The Tiber glitters under the fading sun. People bathe, splash, laugh. You see soldiers dunking each other in the shallows, women washing tunics while gossiping loudly, children chasing one another through the reeds. You sit by the water and watch. The world moves slower here. For a while, you forget the cruelty, the blood, the hunger. You just breathe and listen. The rippling water, the echo of flutes from the other bank, the low hum of a city that's both alive and decaying at the same time. As twilight falls, the festival changes. The laughter grows louder, looser. Fires flicker to life along the streets. The smell of roasting meat mixes with the sharp tang of smoke. The music becomes wilder, drums, strings, clapping hands. You follow it again, drawn like a moth. You find yourself in a courtyard strung with lanterns. A group of dancers move around the flames, their shadows flickering on the walls. The wine flows freely. Someone shoves a roasted fig into your hand. Someone else slaps your back and shouts something you don't understand. You laugh, dizzy and dazed. Then the song changes, slower, deeper. The crowd gathers in a circle. A storyteller steps forward, an old man with a voice like gravel and eyes that have seen too much. He begins to speak of the gods, of mortals who dared too much, of punishments that lasted forever. The crowd quiets. You listen, the words slipping into your mind like smoke. The tale is about Prometheus, how he gave fire to men and was chained for eternity. The old man's voice rises and falls, carrying the rhythm of the flames. You think about the firelight dancing on everyone's faces, about the blood spilled earlier, the laughter, the wine. The Romans live like Prometheus, stealing light, knowing the gods might punish them for it, but too proud to stop. When the story ends, the crowd claps softly. The old man bows, then vanishes into the night. The music starts again, softer now, almost tender. Couples dance slowly. Children fall asleep on stone steps. You slip away from the crowd, your body heavy, your mind hazy. The streets are quieter now, lit only by a few torches flickering against the walls. You walk back toward the poor quarter, passing sleeping dogs and half-drunk men slumped against doors. Somewhere above you, someone sings a woman's voice, sweet and sad. You can't tell the words, but the melody carries like a lullaby. The stars barely show through the smoke, but the moon is there, pale and steady. When you finally reach your small room, the straw bed feels almost soft. You lie down and listen to the city breathe. Distant laughter, a child crying, the crackle of dying fires. Rome is quiet again, but not asleep. You can feel it dreaming of glory, of conquest, of gods who demand everything. You close your eyes and realize that here, even joy comes with blood on its hands. And you think, just before sleep drags you under, maybe that's why no one really lasts a day in Rome. The city doesn't kill you outright. It just takes a little piece of you each hour, until there's nothing left but dust and memory. The morning air feels heavy with the ghost of yesterday's festival. You wake to faint singing outside, a few voices still slurred from too much wine, their laughter thin and tired. Rome is quieter today, but not by much. Somewhere nearby, a blacksmith's hammer already rings. The city doesn't rest. It just shifts gears. You stretch, wincing at the soreness in your legs. The straw mattress hasn't made friends with your back yet. A stream of sunlight spills through the cracks in the wall, cutting through the dust that dances lazily in the air. You smell smoke, oil, and something sharp, vinegar maybe, drifting in from the street. The woman who runs the building is already awake, shouting at someone about rent. Her voice is sharp, cutting through the morning like a knife. You decide to leave before she notices you. Outside, the city feels almost gentle for once. The air is cool, still damp from the night. A breeze drifts through the alley, carrying the faint smell of bread baking somewhere close. You follow it, feet moving automatically toward the promise of food and warmth. You find the bakery by sound, the rhythmic slap of dough, the soft thud of loaves landing on wooden boards. The baker, a large man with arms like marble columns, hands you a small roll still warm from the oven. He doesn't ask who you are. No one does. Rome is too crowded for curiosity. You tear the bread in half and eat as you walk, the crust cracking under your teeth. For a moment, everything feels normal. Then the breeze shifts, carrying a different smell. Steam, oil, perfume. You realize you're near the public baths. You've heard of them, of course. The great bathhouses, where everyone from slaves to senators comes to wash, gossip, and pretend for a few hours that the world isn't collapsing outside. You decide to go in. The building rises ahead like a small palace. Marble steps, high arches, mosaics of dolphins and waves curling along the walls. Inside, the air hums with warmth and echoing voices. You pay a small coin to a boy at the entrance, who barely looks at you before waving you toward a dim corridor lined with lamps. The sound changes as you walk, splashing, laughter, the low murmur of conversation. Steam curls round your face, soft and wet. You step into a large hall where men lounge on stone benches, their bodies glistening with oil. Slaves move quietly between them, carrying towels and scraping tools. The smell of olive oil, sweat, and heat wraps around you like a heavy blanket. You sit awkwardly near the edge, watching the ritual unfold. First, the oiling men rubbing their skin with olive oil mixed with crushed herbs, the scent sharp and earthy. Then comes the strigil, a curved metal scraper that glides over the skin, peeling away sweat and grime. It looks relaxing until you realize how rough it is. You imagine trying it yourself and decide maybe dirt isn't so bad. A slave offers to oil your arms. You nod, and he works silently, efficient, almost gentle. The oil warms your skin, and for the first time in days, you feel your muscles unclench. You hand him a coin, and he bows without meeting your eyes. Across the room, two men argue about politics. One swears the emperor's new tax will ruin the provinces. The other laughs and says it'll ruin the poor first, which is how it's always been. Their words bounce off the marble walls like music. Another man nearby tells a joke about a senator's wife and a gladiator. The laughter that follows is too loud, too practiced. Rome talks about everything in the baths: war, money, scandal, dreams, because the steam hides their expressions. You move to the next chamber, the tepidarium, where the air is thick and moist. The floor glows faintly from heat rising through it. You sit by a pool of warm water, dipping your feet in. The warmth seeps upward, softening the ache in your body. People talk quietly here, their voices muffled by steam. A merchant beside you complains about the grain supply from Egypt, how ships are delayed, how prices will rise. If the bread riots start again, he mutters, "The gods help us all." You nod absently, not sure if he expects a reply. You wonder what it must feel like to live in a city where hunger can spark chaos, where thousands could riot over the cost of flour. Rome looks powerful from a distance, but up close, it feels fragile, a giant built on shifting sand. From the tepidarium you move to the caldarium, the hot bath. The moment you step in, the heat slaps you like a wave. The air is thick enough to taste. Your lungs protest, but the others seem fine, chatting calmly as sweat runs down their skin like rain. You lower yourself into the pool slowly, the heat biting your skin before easing into comfort. The water smells faintly of sulfur. Around you, men lean against the stone edges, eyes closed, half asleep. The sound of dripping water echoes like slow breathing. Someone nearby mentions a murder trial, a senator accused of poisoning his rival. Another whispers that it's nonsense, that the real reason is debt. You listen quietly, pretending not to. It's strange how politics seeps into every conversation here, like humidity in the air. When the heat becomes too much, you stumble out, dizzy and drenched. A slave hands you a towel and points toward the frigidarium, the cold plunge. You hesitate, but go anyway. The pool gleams like glass, the water shockingly clear. You brace yourself and step in. The cold hits like lightning. Your heart skips, your breath catches, but then, relief. The heat drains from your body, leaving a kind of clarity behind. You float for a moment, weightless, suspended between two worlds. When you step out, the world feels sharper, the sounds brighter, the air lighter. You dry yourself slowly, watching the steam rise off your skin. The slaves move silently, collecting towels, refilling lamps. It's strange, everyone in here plays their part perfectly, as if this small, steamy world has its own laws separate from the chaos outside. You leave the bathhouse feeling both clean and empty. The air outside feels almost cold after all that heat. The sun hangs low, turning the walls golden. The city hums softly, calmer than before. You wander through the forum again. The marble columns glow in the light, their shadows stretching long across the square. People stroll in pairs, talking, trading gossip. You catch fragments, rumors about the emperor, about new taxes, about omens in the sky. Rome runs on gossip as much as grain. You stop near a small stall selling scrolls. The merchant tells you he has new poems, some by a man named Ovid. You pick one up and glance at the lines, something about love and gods, and how neither lasts. You smile faintly and set it down. As dusk settles, torches are lit one by one. The flames flicker in the wind, reflected in bronze helmets and polished stones. You feel the fatigue of the day pressing down. But there's something peaceful about the rhythm of it all. The endless noise, the cycles of heat and cool, the people moving through their lives like actors in a play that never ends. You find a quiet spot near the steps of a temple and sit. The stone is still warm under you. A group of children chase each other nearby, their laughter echoing against the columns. A woman sings to her baby softly, a melody older than the city itself. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in the mingled scents of oil, smoke, and water. Rome feels eternal like this, endless, breathing, indifferent. You understand why people call it the center of the world, even if it's built on bones. When you finally rise and walk home, the streets are almost empty. The last light fades from the sky, replaced by the glow of lamps in upper windows. Somewhere, a man plays a reed flute, slow, mournful, beautiful. Back in your narrow room, you lie down, still feeling the ghost of heat on your skin. The bathhouse echoes faintly in your mind, the steam, the laughter, the whispered secrets. You think of all the people who passed through those chambers today, all pretending to wash something off that water can't touch. Sleep comes slowly, like a tide, and as it pulls you under, you think about how Rome cleanses and corrupts at the same time. how it makes you feel alive while quietly wearing you down. Maybe that's the trick of it. You wouldn't last a day in the Roman Empire, not because it would kill you outright, but because it would convince you to love it while it did. The night in Rome begins slowly, like a candle burning from both ends. The air cools but never truly chills. The city exhales after a long day, and the rhythm shifts softer, stranger, alive in a different way. You step into the street, drawn by the sounds that slip between the walls. Laughter, music, a distant argument. The moon sits low, washing the rooftops in silver. The stones under your feet still hold the day's warmth, and the air smells faintly of olive smoke and roasted garlic. By now, most of the respectable Romans are home: senators, merchants, the people with doors that lock. What's left outside belongs to another Rome: the nightwalkers, gamblers, drunkards, thieves, and you. You wander through narrow alleys where lamps flicker weakly, each one fighting off the darkness like a tired soldier. A woman leans from a window, whispering to someone below. A group of men laugh too loudly, dice rattling in a wooden cup. Somewhere far off, a dog barks, then falls silent. You find a tavern you haven't seen before. The door is open, and light spills out like honey. Inside, the air is thick with wine and sweat, and something frying in oil. You duck your head and step in. The room is small, crowded, alive. Men sit at rough wooden tables, cups clutched in calloused hands. The floor is sticky, the walls stained with smoke. Someone strums a lyre in the corner badly, but with enthusiasm. The tavern keeper, a woman with one eye clouded white, nods at you. You nod back. She pours you wine without asking. It's cheap and sharp, but it warms your chest instantly. You sit near the back, watching two men argue over a game of dice. One accuses the other of cheating. The other laughs and throws a handful of coins onto the floor. A third man scoops them up before they stop rolling. Nobody protests. The woman beside you, dark hair, tired eyes, leans in. "You're new," she says. Her Latin is slow, careful. You nod. She smiles without humor. "Be careful. People here smile before they steal." You thank her, and she laughs softly, like you've just proved her point. As the night thickens, the noise grows louder. A soldier slams his cup down and sings an obscene song about Mars and a shepherd's wife. The crowd joins in on the chorus. Someone starts clapping, offbeat. Someone else spills wine on your arm and doesn't notice. The smell of smoke and spilt wine fills your lungs. You could almost fall asleep right here, in the noise, in the warmth. But the woman beside you touches your arm and shakes her head. "Not here," she whispers. "Never sleep in a tavern. You'll wake up lighter." You nod, finish your drink, and step outside. The night air feels like another world, cool, damp, almost clean after the tavern. You can still hear laughter behind you as you walk away. The streets are darker now. Torches burn lower, casting long, shaky shadows. You follow the sound of footsteps, maybe your own, maybe someone else's. Rome after midnight feels like a different city, quieter but not safer. You pass a group of young men clustered under an archway, dice clattering on the ground between them. Their laughter cuts through the silence. One looks up and grins, gold tooth glinting in the torchlight. You keep walking. He calls something after you, but you don't turn back. Further on, you hear singing again, a low, sad tune, drifting from a doorway. You peek inside. A woman sits alone by a candle, her voice filling the space. The song is about a sailor lost at sea, waiting for the gods to forgive him. You'll stand there for a while, just listening. When she finishes, she looks up and nods like she already knew you were there. You drop a coin on the step and walk away. The Tiber murmurs somewhere nearby. You follow its voice until you reach the water's edge. The moon ripples on the surface like melted silver. Across the river, you can see the faint glow of fires, hear faint shouts, the poorer quarters, where the law sleeps deepest. You sit on a stone ledge and watch the water move. It looks peaceful, but you've heard stories about bodies that wash up at dawn, about thieves who dump their victims hereafter emptying their purses. The Tiber carries everything eventually. A rat scurries across the stones. You don't move. The city breathes in its sleep, restless, dreaming. You wonder what it dreams about. Empire, maybe, or maybe just bread. You stand and keep walking. The streets twist and narrow until you're not sure where you are. Somewhere behind you, footsteps echo light, quick. You glance back, but the alley looks empty. The sound stops. You walk faster. A voice calls softly from the shadows. You don't understand the words, but the tone makes your skin tighten. You turn a corner and suddenly there's light again, a small fire burning in a brazier, a few figures huddled around it. They look up, and for a moment no one speaks. Then one of them gestures for you to join. You hesitate, but the warmth wins. You sit on the edge of the firelight. The man across from you grins, missing 2 teeth, but friendly enough. "Cold night," he says. You nod. They pass around a loaf of bread that looks more dust than flour, and a flask of wine that burns like vinegar. You take both. They ask where you're from. You tell them a lie, something vague about being from the provinces. They nod, as if they understand. Everyone here is from somewhere else. They talk about work, hauling grain, cleaning stables, carrying bricks for buildings they'll never live in. Their words are simple, but the tiredness underneath them is heavy. One man jokes that he's rebuilt the same villa 3 times for 3 different senators who all wanted the same marble. The others laugh, the kind of laugh that hurts. After a while, the group begins to thin. Some drift away, others curl up where they sit. The fires glow soft on their faces. You stay a little longer, staring into the coals until the world blurs. Then a voice beside you, low, rough but kind, says, "Go before the lamps die. Bad things walk when it's dark." You nod, stand slowly, and slip back into the street. The city feels emptier now. The torches are almost gone, and the moon hides behind clouds. The stones glisten with dew, slick under your feet. You move carefully, trying not to think about the shapes in the dark. Somewhere, a door creaks open and shuts again. You hear a baby crying in the distance, a dog growling softly, then silence. By the time you find your way back to the main road, dawn is already teasing the edge of the sky. The lamps flicker weaker now, their oil almost spent. A cart rattles by, carrying barrels that smell of fish. A slave walks beside it, yawning, his eyes half closed. You realize you haven't slept. The night has stripped something from you, maybe time, maybe courage. You feel older, heavier. Rome does that. It fills you up and drains you at the same time. You stop at a fountain and splash water on your face. It's cold enough to sting. The reflection that looks back at you doesn't quite feel like yours. Eyes darker, expression thinner. You laugh quietly, though there's no reason to. The city around you begins to stir again. You hear roosters, merchants, the first hammer strikes of the day. Rome wakes early, hungry for another round. You walk toward the sunrise, the sky softening to pink over the rooftops. The air smells of ash and bread. For a few heartbeats, everything feels almost peaceful. Then someone shouts, somewhere, and the rhythm starts again. Another day, another struggle, another step closer to the edge. You think about how much this city asks from the people who serve it. Sleep, safety, blood, all traded for the illusion of belonging. You wonder how many nights like this you could survive before Rome finally takes what's left of you. As the first light touches the stones, you realize the answer. Not many. Maybe one more day, if you're lucky. Maybe less. The sun crawls over the rooftops, painting the bricks gold, and the alleys pink. Rome wakes fast, with no patience for slow movers. The air smells of charcoal, sweat, and something frying far away. You blink, trying to find your bearings. Somewhere behind you, the river murmurs. Somewhere ahead, the city stretches out, loud, alive, unrelenting. The slaves are already working. You see them everywhere, sweeping, hauling, scrubbing, running. They move like shadows, almost invisible unless you stare too long. The Romans like their slaves, silent, quick, and obedient. A young man rushes past you with a basket on his back. His tunic is torn at the shoulder, his feet bare and bleeding. He doesn't look at you, he doesn't look at anyone. His master follows behind, shouting something sharp in Latin. You catch the word Celerius, faster, always faster. In the empire, everything depends on people like him. The senators debate, the generals conquer, but it's the slaves who keep Rome breathing. They build the roads, bake the bread, fetch the water, fadge the water, fan the air in summer, and die quietly when they're used up. You pass a construction site, a half-finished bathhouse. The sound of hammers and saws fills the street. A dozen men are hauling stone blocks into place. Their muscles shine with sweat, their faces grey with dust. A foreman stands above them with a whip in hand. He doesn't use it often. The threat is enough. You pause, watching. One of the men stumbles under his load, knees buckling. The stone slips and cracks on the ground. The foreman shouts. Everyone freezes. For a heartbeat, you think he'll strike, but he just curses and waves the others to keep moving. The fallen man drags himself upright and goes back to work. The stone is heavier this time, but he doesn't complain. A woman nearby is selling bread. You buy a small loaf. It's hard, dry, and tastes faintly of smoke. Still, it's something. You eat slowly, watching Rome unfold around you. Across the street, a group of slaves are lined up, each holding a broom. They're cleaning the steps of a temple, scrubbing marble that gleams too bright in the sun. A priest stands at the top, giving instructions with lazy gestures. He doesn't look at their faces, only their hands. One of the women scrubbing the steps glances up at you. Her eyes are tired, but not empty. For a second, you think she might smile, but she doesn't. She goes back to work. You wander deeper into the city. Every alley hums with motion, carts creaking, chickens squawking, someone shouting for water. The sun climbs higher, pressing heat into the stones. The streets smell stronger now. Sweat, bread, manure, life. You find yourself near the slave market. You didn't plan to, but Rome has a way of pulling you toward its center. The square is crowded. Men in fine tunics, women with veils, traders from far-off provinces. And in the middle, the platform. On it, a line of people, men, women, children, stand with blank expressions. Some are chained, some not. A few have placards around their necks, describing their skills. Cook, nurse, cleaner, field worker, literate in Greek. An auctioneer stands before them, calling out bids. His voice rises and falls like a song. The crowd murmurs, calculates. A man in a white toga lifts a hand. Another raises the price. The auctioneer smiles. You feel a chill crawl up your spine. The sun is hot, but the scene feels cold. A young boy, no older than 12, is sold for the price of a good donkey. The buyer laughs, says something about teaching him manners. The boy looks at the ground. You turn away, your stomach tightening. Rome, in all its glory, runs on bones like these. You keep walking, trying to forget the sound of the auctioneer's voice. The noise fades, replaced by the rhythm of hammers again, the murmur of 1,000 small labors. You pass a public fountain where slaves are filling amphorae. They talk quietly, voices blending with the splash of water. One of them, an older man with gray hair, glances at you. "Not from here," he says, not as a question. You nod. He grins, showing a gap in his teeth. "Don't worry. Rome eats everyone eventually." He laughs softly, and it's hard to tell if it's a joke. Further along, the smell of cooking draws you toward a narrow lane. Smoke curls from small clay ovens built into the walls. Bakers shout to each other, pulling loaves from the fire with long paddles. Their arms are streaked with soot and burns. One offers you a piece of warm bread for a coin. You hand it over and bite into it. It's better than the one from earlier, soft, almost sweet. For a brief moment, you close your eyes and just taste it. Then you hear a shout. One of the bakers has dropped a tray. Loaves scatter onto the street, into the dust. The head baker curses and slaps him hard across the face. The younger man doesn't react, just picks up the ruined bread, brushes off the dirt, and puts it back. No one says a word. You move on. The sun is high now, and the heat turns the air thick. You can feel sweat crawling down your back. The Romans deal with it better. They've spent their lives in this furnace. You, on the other hand, are melting. You find shade beneath an archway, where a few others are resting. A slave woman fans her sleeping child with a palm leaf. Two laborers share a wineskin, their faces slack with exhaustion. You sit beside them. The older of the two looks at you, squinting. "Work?" he asks. You shake your head. "Then you'll starve," he says simply, and takes another drink. You can't argue. In Rome, even breathing feels like work. The woman with the child hums a tune, something soft, almost like a lullaby. The baby stirs but doesn't wake. You close your eyes for a moment, listening. The sound of her voice mingles with the city's noise. Hammers, wheels, shouts, prayers. A strange kind of music, rough but real. When you open your eyes again, the sun has shifted. Shadows stretch long and thin. You stand and keep walking, your legs heavy. You wander through the markets, stalls of fruit, spices, fabrics, tools. The air is alive with color and smell. Figs, fish, olive oil, garlic. People haggle, argue, laugh. Somewhere, a flute plays. It almost feels beautiful, until you notice the faces of those doing the work. Bent backs, cracked hands, eyes that never look up. You realize that for most people here, Beauty is just something they serve, not something they live in. You stop at a stall where a potter shapes clay on a wheel. His hands move with practiced grace. Each bowl, each cup, a small act of defiance against the chaos around him. He looks up and smiles faintly. "Want to try?" he asks. You hesitate, then sit beside him. The clay is cool and soft under your fingers. He guides your hands gently, steadying the spin. For a moment it feels calm, simple. The world shrinks to the wheel and the shape growing between your palms. Then he says quietly, "Don't get too good at it. Someone will notice." You laugh, thinking he's joking. He isn't. When you leave, he nods once, then goes back to his work. The clay keeps spinning. The day drags on, slow and relentless. Every street you walk seems to hum with the same truth. Rome is magnificent, but it's built on exhaustion. Every wall you see, every bathhouse, every statue, all carved from someone's pain. You start to understand why the laughter in this city always sounds a little hollow. As the sun begins to dip, the light softens again. Shadows lengthen, faces blur. The workers start to drift home, or what passes for home. Some share crowded rooms in insulae, others sleep in corners of the buildings they built. The slaves return to their masters' houses, where the night's chores wait. You follow the flow of tired bodies, your own steps slower now. The air cools, carrying the smell of stew and smoke. Someone sings softly nearby, the tune familiar from earlier. Maybe the same woman. Maybe everyone here hums the same melody by nightfall. As you pass a doorway, you see inside a slave lying on a straw mat, eyes closed, a faint smile on his face. His hands are rough and cracked, but in sleep he looks almost peaceful. For a moment, you envy him. The city dims again. The lamps are lit. The day's heat fades into memory. Rome exhales, ready for another night. You stop and look around, the stones glowing faintly, the air humming with quiet voices. You realize you've made it through another day, barely, and somehow, that feels like victory. But in Rome, victory never lasts long. The evening creeps into Rome like a slow sigh. The sky fades from bronze to violet, and the air turns thick with smoke from 1,000 little fires. After the heat of the day, the city feels almost gentle now. Not peaceful exactly, just slower, tired in a human way. You can hear it everywhere, the sound of people settling, of pots clinking, voices softening. The workers are returning from the fields, from the workshops, from wherever the city needed them. The streets fill with the shuffle of feet, the murmurs of the hungry. You follow the smell of food. It's everywhere, and nowhere near enough. Most Romans eat the same thing every night. Bread, olives, maybe porridge, or lentils if they're lucky. Meat is for festivals, for soldiers, for the rich. The rest make do with what's left. A woman ladles stew from a pot into clay bowls. You hand her a coin. She barely looks at you, just passes you the bowl. It's warm and thick, tasting faintly of garlic and barley. It's not bad. You sit on a step, eating slowly while the city hums around you. Nearby, a group of children chase each other through the dust. Their laughter cuts through the evening air, bright and short-lived. A man sits against the wall, mending sandals by lamplight. His fingers move quick and sure, threading leather through holes, tying the same knots he's tied for 30 years. Above, in a window, someone sings. The melody drifts down soft and tired, like a lullaby. You can't catch the words, but you don't need to. You feel the weight of the day melting out of the city, replaced by the small relief of survival. Rome smells different at dusk. Bread, smoke, sweat, and something sweet, like figs cooking in wine. You breathe it in, and it's almost beautiful. You wander again, bowl in hand, sipping the last of the stew as the lamps flicker on. In a doorway, two women sit combing each other's hair, talking quietly about a neighbor's wedding. Their laughter is light, real. It's strange how soft the world can sound, even after everything. You pass by a bakery. The ovens still burn. Inside, the bakers work late. Tomorrow's bread must be ready before dawn. The air glows red from the firelight, and you can see their silhouettes moving through the smoke like ghosts. Across the street, a man is selling wine from a jug. It's thin and sour, but the people line up anyway. You watch a soldier buy a cup, drain it, and hand the man his last coin. He wipes his mouth and laughs, though nothing is funny. The soldier sees you watching and grins. "First day in Rome," he says. His voice is rough but friendly. You nod. "Then drink," he says, pouring a little into your bowl. Everyone's a philosopher until the wine runs out. You drink. It burns your throat, sharp but warm. He laughs again, shakes his head, and walks off into the dark. You sit there a while longer, the sounds of the city wrapping around you. A baby cries somewhere. Someone is arguing about fish prices. A dog barks, then settles. For a moment, you feel like you could stay here in this soft, tired Rome, the kind that only shows itself when the noise fades. You wander toward the river again. The Tiber at night looks like molten glass, slow and heavy. People gather along the banks, couples whispering, men fishing, a few slaves washing the day's grime off their arms. You sit and watch the reflections ripple. A boy beside you tosses stones into the water. "You from the provinces?" he asks. You nod. He grins. "Everyone here is." He throws another stone, watches the rings spread out. "Rome's like a mother," he says. "Feeds you, beats you, and never lets you leave." You laugh softly. "And you?" He shrugs, still deciding. The boy leaves, and you stay there, staring at the water. The moon is climbing again, pale and tired. You wonder how many nights it's watched over this city, how many faces it's seen come and go, how many lives flicker out like lamps. You think about sleep, real sleep. You haven't had that in a while. You find a quiet alley not far from the river. A few others are already there, curled up in the shadows, slaves, travelers, maybe people like you who don't belong anywhere. You lie down against the wall, pull your cloak tight, and close your eyes. The ground is hard. The air smells of dust and damp stone. But you're too tired to care. You drift in and out, half dreaming, half listening to the city breathe. Somewhere nearby, someone snores. Somewhere farther, a lute plays. A woman laughs softly, and a cart creaks past. Rome never really sleeps. It just lowers its voice. You dream, maybe. You're not sure. You see flashes, marble columns, torchlight, waves of people moving through narrow streets. You hear Latin words you don't understand. You wake once, thinking it's morning, but it's still night. When dawn finally comes, it's soft and slow. The air smells cleaner, like wet earth and smoke. The sky glows faint gold behind the rooftops. You sit up, rubbing your eyes. Your back aches, your mouth tastes of dust. But you're alive. A woman nearby is feeding her child from a wooden bowl. She offers you a sip of water. You thank her quietly. As you drink, you realize how strange this life is, how easily people here move between misery and kindness. One moment, the city crushes you. The next, someone shares their last drop of water. It's like Rome teaches everyone the same lesson. Everything is borrowed, even mercy. You stand and stretch. The morning feels heavier this time, like the city's already tired before the day begins. The streets fill quickly. The same rhythm starts again, the same shouts, the same wheels, the same dust. The baker lights his oven. The slaves hurry with buckets. The merchants open their stalls. You walk through it all, quieter now, slower. The more time you spend here, the more you notice the cracks in the marble, the tired eyes behind every smile, the way the city always seems hungry for something it can't name. You pass a public bath. Steam rises from inside, carrying voices with it, laughter, splashing, arguments. For the first time, you step in. The air hits you warm, wet, smelling of oil and sweat. People sit on benches, talking, washing, pretending for an hour that they're clean, that they belong. Slaves move among them, carrying towels, pouring water, fetching oil. You sit near the edge of a pool, dipping your hands into the warm water. It feels strange human warmth, shared by strangers. You lean back, listening. Two men nearby are arguing about politics. Another complains about grain prices. A young boy hums a song while his father scrubs his hair. The sounds blur together into something soothing. You close your eyes. For a few moments, it's easy to forget where you are. Easy to imagine Rome as the poets describe it, golden, powerful, eternal. But then you open your eyes, and you see it again. The cracks, the tired faces, the shadows where the lamplight doesn't reach, the truth beneath the marble. You realize something. Rome isn't beautiful because it's perfect. It's beautiful because it keeps standing, even when everything in it is falling apart. You stay until the water cools and the light shifts. When you step outside, the day has begun again. The city roars, alive and merciless. And you, still a stranger here, still tired, keep walking because that's what everyone in Rome does. They walk, they work, they sleep, they wake, over and over, until the gods decide they've done enough. You look up at the sky, squinting against the sun, and whisper to no one, maybe one more day. The city doesn't answer. It just breathes, like it always has. The air changes first. That's how you know something's wrong. The morning feels thick, heavy in your chest. The streets smell sharper. The dust tastes bitter. People move slower, quieter. You notice fewer smiles, fewer words traded between strangers. It's as if the whole city is holding its breath. Then you hear it, the faint sound of coughing, scattered at first. Then more often, someone sneezes near a fountain, wipes their face with the hem of their tunic, and keeps walking. No one says anything, but everyone looks away. Sickness, in Rome, moves like a rumor. By the time people admit it's there, it's already everywhere. You see it unfold day by day. The baker's boy stops showing up. The old man who used to sit outside the temple disappears. The woman who sold figs on the corner now lies wrapped in cloth behind her stall. The smell of burning herbs fills the air, mixing with smoke and fear. Rome has its doctors, men with scrolls and scalpels and serious eyes, but they mostly serve the wealthy. For everyone else, healing comes from prayers, potions, or luck. The gods get busier when the fevers rise. You watch a priest sprinkle water over a crowd, chanting to Apollo. The people repeat his words, desperate. Behind them, a mother holds her child close, whispering something only the child can hear. The priest's water drips down their faces, glistening like tears. You try to stay away from the crowded places, but in Rome, everything is crowded. The air itself feels shared. The baths, the fountains, the taverns, all full of breath that isn't yours. You start coughing too, just once or twice at first. You tell yourself it's nothing. You walk slower now, feeling the heat in your skin, even when the air cools. You drink from a fountain, but it doesn't help. The world feels distant, like you're seeing it through water. You find a quiet place near the river, sit on a stone, and try to breathe. Across the water, you see smoke rising. They're burning more now. Not wood, not trash. You don't want to know. The city keeps moving, like it always does. Rome never stops for the sick. There's grain to haul, walls to build, mouths to feed. Even death has to make room for work. You stumble through the streets, dizzy, clutching at the walls. A woman passes you, eyes down. She doesn't look twice. Everyone here has learned not to pee. You find yourself near a temple again. Maybe the same one, maybe not. It's hard to tell. You sit on the steps, too tired to move. A man beside you groans softly. His skin is pale, his lips cracked. You both stare at the same point in the distance, not saying a word. You don't remember how long you sit there. Time feels loose, unthreaded. When you finally stand, your legs shake. The city spins a little. You walk because stopping feels worse. By evening, the air is thick with smoke. People are burning herbs in their doorways, sage, myrrh, anything that might please the gods. You cough again, harder this time. The taste of iron fills your mouth. A child runs past, laughing, chasing a dog. The sound feels strange to bright in all this grey. You follow it with your eyes until it fades. That night, you sleep outside again. You dream of water, cool and clean. But when you wake, your throat burns, your body aches. The sky is still dark, the stars cold and sharp above the rooftops. You sit up slowly, the world humming softly around you. The fever has its own rhythm now. Your heartbeat sounds like footsteps in your ears. You wonder how many people die like this here, quietly, without ceremony. How many are buried in pits outside the city, their names forgotten before the dirt settles. Rome is full of monuments to those who mattered, emperors, generals, poets, but beneath them lie millions of unmarked lives. People who built the empire, bled for it, and disappeared into the dust. You're starting to understand why the poets always write about glory. The truth is too ordinary. As the days pass, the sickness fades a little. Not gone, just quieter. You're thinner now, slower. Every step feels like a small debt being paid. But you're alive, somehow. You walk again through the streets. The city smells cleaner. Rain has washed the dust away. You see fewer fires. The fountains run clearer. Life, as always, goes on. You stop near the forum, where people are gathering. A man in chains stands on a platform, surrounded by guards. The crowd murmurs. You can't hear what crime he's accused of, but the punishment is clear. Rome believes in spectacle. The guards raise their rods. The crowd leans forward. The man doesn't plead. The first strike lands, then another. The noise is dull, rhythmic. You turn away, but the sound follows you, soft and heavy, like a drumbeat. Punishment here isn't just about justice. It's about reminding everyone who holds the power. You walk faster, trying to shake the image. You end up near the amphitheater, where another kind of punishment waits, the kind wrapped in cheers. The games are starting. You hear the crowd before you see them. Thousands of voices rising together, a wave of sound that shakes the air. You slip inside with the others, lost in the crush of bodies. The arena opens before you, golden sand, high walls, sunlight cutting through the dust. The smell of sweat, blood, and metal fills your nose. The first match begins. Two men face each other, shields raised. The crowd roars. The clang of steel echoes. You can feel the vibration through the floor. The fight is fast, brutal. One falls, the other stands, chest heaving. The crowd cheers louder. A thumb turns down. The sword falls again. You look away, but it doesn't help. The sound stays with you, the sharp, wet finality of it. You realize something then. This city doesn't just live with death, it celebrates it. Rome is built on the spectacle of survival, the illusion of control. For every person in the arena, there are thousands outside fighting quieter battles with hunger, sickness, time. You step back, out of the light, into the shadows of the amphitheater's corridors. The noise fades behind you. The air here smells of stone and sweat. You see a slave mopping blood from the floor, humming softly as he works. His song is calm, almost cheerful. You can't tell if it's madness or mercy. When you finally step outside, the sky has dimmed. The sun is low, bleeding orange across the city. Rome looks beautiful again, almost gentle. It's strange how it does that, how it hides its cruelty behind the glow of twilight. You walk along the edge of the forum, past statues that gleam like they're still alive. Their faces are smooth, perfect, untouched by time or pain. You touch one of the marble hands. It's cold. You think about how easily people are replaced here. One man falls, another rises. One slave dies, another takes his place. The empire goes on, indifferent. And yet, as you watch the sunset paint the city gold, you feel something unexpected, a kind of tenderness, not for Rome's power, but for the small lives that survive inside it. The bakers, the slaves, the mothers, the tired workers who find a way to laugh between the cracks. They're the reason Rome lives at all, not the emperors, not the generals. Them, the ones who keep walking, no matter how heavy the day gets. You stay there until the light fades, the city softens, and the noise turns into a low hum again. The stars begin to appear, faint and scattered. Somewhere, a bell rings, calling the slaves back, warning the thieves, marking another night. You breathe in the cool air, and for the first time in days, it doesn't hurt. You know you'll wake up tomorrow and do it all again. Because that's what life in Rome is, not a grand story, not glory or ruin, just endurance. And that, maybe, is why you wouldn't last a day here. Night has fallen over Rome, but the city doesn't really sleep. It hums a low, steady vibration that seeps through the walls and stone. You walk through the narrow streets, following the sound of distant laughter, the faint clatter of amphorae, the occasional bark of a dog. The moon glows weakly above, its light caught in the haze of chimney smoke. You think it might finally be peaceful. But Rome's peace is never quiet, it's just a slower kind of noise. You pass by doorways where lamps still burn, their light flickering on the faces of people who whisper to each other before bed. Someone is counting coins softly. Someone else hums a lullaby. You catch the faint scent of olive oil and smoke, the warm musk of boudies too close together. In a courtyard, a small altar glows, a family shrine to the Lares, the household gods. A woman kneels before it, murmuring words you can't quite catch. She's thanking them for the day's safety, for food, for warmth. You realize that even in a city of emperors and temples, faith here starts small, inside the home, whispered between breaths. Death, in Rome, isn't hidden away. It's part of the rhythm. You see tombs built along the roads leading out of the city, rows and rows of stone faces staring down at travelers. The Romans didn't bury their dead inside the walls. The living and the dead had to stay in their proper places. You'll remember the first time you saw one of those tombs carved with a man's face, his eyes to lifelike. Beneath it, an inscription, "Traveler, stop and read. I once was what you are. You will be what I am." There's something both terrifying and tender about it. They wanted to be remembered not as ghosts, but as neighbors you might greet on your way out of town. You walk farther, following the road out of the city until the lights fade and the stars sharpen above. The countryside stretches out in waves of darkness. Somewhere, an owl calls. The wind smells of earth and ash. You stop beside one of those roadside tombs and rest your hand on the cold stone. The carvings are weathered, names almost gone. A family once stood here, years ago, offering bread and wine, maybe a coin or two. The dead were supposed to eat, to drink, to remember what it was like to live. The Romans didn't think death ended anything. It was just a change of address. The spirits of the dead, the manes, lingered, gentle if you treated them right, angry if you didn't. People left offerings not because they feared them, but because they understood them. You sit down near the tomb and listen to the wind moving through the grass. The stars above seem impossibly bright, ancient and calm. For a moment, you feel the same quiet resignation that must have lived in the hearts of people here. The acceptance that life and death are just two sides of the same stone. Back in the city, the air grows colder. Fires flicker lower. You see a funeral procession passing through a side street, torches in a line, shadows swaying on the walls. The mourners chant softly, steady and rhythmic, like the tide. At the front, a small boy carries a mask, the wax face of the dead man, cast from his features. The Romans made these imagined death masks to keep the ancestors close. During festivals, the masks would be brought out and worn by the living, so that the family could walk again, all generations together. It's strange and beautiful, this idea that death doesn't separate you from your blood, just changes how you stand beside them. You follow the procession for a while, your footsteps echoing against the stones. The torches flicker on marble walls, and for a moment you catch sight of a fresco, a painted scene of a man reclining at a feast, a cup in his hand, smiling. He looks alive, but he's not. It's his tomb. The Romans often showed their dead like that, not as corpses, but as hosts, still sharing the meal of eternity. They believed the dead wanted company, warmth, laughter. So, they gave it to them, even in paint. The procession stops at the edge of the city, near a small necropolis. The mourners place the body inside a stone chamber, set out offerings, and speak the final words. You can't hear them clearly, but you know what they mean. May the earth rest lightly upon you. You stay a while after they leave. The torches burned low, the smoke rising into the stars. You realize that in Rome, death isn't tragedy, it's continuity. People die, but the city endures. The river still runs. The market still opens. Someone always wakes up to start the fire again. When you walk back toward the heart of Rome, dawn is already breaking, soft blue light spilling over the rooftops. The mist clings to the streets like memory. You pass through the forum just as the first vendors start setting up. The marble columns catch the sun and gleam gold. You can almost forget the darkness that came before. A group of men in white togas stand near the steps, talking politics. Their voices are confident, dismissive, the way people sound when they believe they control the world. You wonder if they ever think about how fragile it all is, how the empire could crumble, just like the old stones beneath their feet. Maybe some of them do. Maybe that's why they build so much, to make something that won't die when they do. You stop near a statue of Augustus, towering above the square. His hand is raised, pointing toward the horizon, as if even now he's still commanding Rome to rise. You look at his face, calm, almost divine, but you know he's dust now. All that's left is marble. A woman walks past, carrying a basket of figs. She doesn't even look up at him. For her, Augustus isn't a god, he's just part of the scenery. You realize that's what Rome does best. It outlives its own stories. Every emperor becomes a statue. Every god becomes a ruin. And still, people live here, eat, love, pray, and die. You wander through the city as it wakes, the sound of wooden carts, the creak of doors, the first calls from the market. The light feels softer now, more forgiving. You stop at a fountain and watch as a child splashes water onto his face, laughing. His mother scolds him gently. It feels timeless, like this exact moment could have happened 1,000 years ago or tomorrow. Rome is eternal not because of its emperors or wars, but because of moments like this. Ordinary, small, endlessly repeating. As the sun climbs higher, you feel the warmth spread across your skin. The light hits the city and turns everything to gold again. The statues, the dust, even the faces of the weary. You close your eyes. The sound of the fountain blends with the distant chatter. the hum of life returning. If you were to fall asleep now, it wouldn't matter. Rome would go on. Someone else would take your place in the crowd, walking the same streets, breathing the same air, whispering the same prayers to the same old gods. And that's the quiet truth of this world. You don't last here because you're not supposed to. Rome doesn't belong to anyone. You just borrow a moment of it before the dust takes you back. You wake to smoke. Not the cozy kind from hearth fires or bakeries, but the kind that stings your eyes before you even open them. The air feels wrong, thick and sour. You sit up, blinking. The street outside is hazy, glowing orange. Someone shouts in the distance, not a word you can make out. Just panic stretched thin. Rome burns. Again. It's strange how ordinary it feels. The city has burned before. It will burn again. Fire isn't rare here, it's almost seasonal. Wood, cloth, oil lamps, open braziers, a spark is all it takes. And when a breeze joins in, the whole city becomes kindling. You step outside. The heat hits you like a wall. People run with buckets, shouting names. Others just stand and watch. Frozen, the flames crawl across rooftops like red serpents. You see a man trying to carry a chest out of his house, tripping as the smoke blinds him. Another throws water onto a door already swallowed by fire. It hisses, useless. The sound of crackling wood mixes with the screams. The air tastes of ash and fear. You join a small group heading toward the river, instinct more than plan. The closer you get, the cooler the air feels, but the smoke still chokes. Rome rebuilds after every disaster, but something changes each time. Fewer old homes, more marble. Fewer neighbors, more strangers. The heart of the city keeps shifting. Burned, rebuilt, burned again. You wonder if people ever get tired of rebuilding, or if that's just what it means to be Roman, to live with ruin as part of the routine. By dawn, the flames have died down. Smoke lingers like fog. The streets are grey with ash, the air sour and still. You walk through the ruins, feeling the crunch of charcoal beneath your sandals. People pick through the remains of their homes, searching for anything left. A piece of pottery, a scrap of cloth, a coin turned black but still solid. You see a child holding a small clay figurine, cracked but intact. He smiles, just for a moment, before his mother pulls him away. Even in ruin, life goes on. But the city doesn't feel the same. Food is scarce now. The grain ships from Egypt are delayed again. Storms, pirates, corruption, who knows? Prices rise faster than anyone can count. Bread riots start in the market. Soldiers try to keep order, but hunger doesn't obey swords. You see a man caught stealing a loaf, dragged into the street. The crowd watches as the punishment comes swift, a beating, brutal and loud. No one interferes. They've all been hungry before. You start to notice more beggars, more hollow faces. People sleep in alleys, under broken porticos. The poor have always filled Rome, but now they overflow. The city feels swollen, sick with its own weight. And then, the sickness comes again. You look at him, then at the cracked stones behind him, the weeds growing between them. Forever doesn't look the same anymore. The night deepens. You find yourself near the river again. The water moves slow, thick with silt. Across it, the city glows faintly. Fires, lamps, the shimmer of distant life. You sit on the bank and watch your reflection waver. You look like one of them now, tired, worn, part of the dust. You think about how this place once ruled everything it touched, how its legions marched across continents, how its language, its laws, its arrogance filled the world. And now, just smoke, silence, and ghosts that whisper through crumbling walls. But even in its ruin, Rome is beautiful. Not in the way of victory, but in the way of memory. Soft, faded, stubborn. The city is dying, but it refuses to be gone. It clings to life like a vine on a broken column, twisting toward the sun, even as the roots crumble below.